So welcome everybody. It is October 19th and it is 5:32 and this is the meeting of the Palm Springs Sustainability Commission. And I will turn it over to Roy Clark, the chair, to get us started.
Good evening, everybody. The October 19th meeting of the Palm Springs Sustainability Commission is now called to order. Tracy, would you perform the roll call, please?
Yes, Vice Chair Friedman.
Present.
Commissioner Baker.
Here.
Commissioner Barrett.
Here.
Commissioner Evans.
Here.
Commissioner Futterman. Commissioner Torrens. Commissioner Garrett.
Here.
And note that Commissioner Ocanius has an excused absence.
And Commissioner Torrance just emailed that he's running a few minutes late.
Great. Thank you. Chair Clark.
I'd like to welcome everybody, the staff, the visitors, and the commissioners to the meeting this evening. For the visitors, there will be time for public comments later in the meeting. I ask everybody to please keep your microphones muted during the meeting and then raise your hand to be called to speak. The next item on the agenda is the acceptance of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was emailed and posted last Thursday, October 14th. Are there any comments, changes, or additions to the agenda? Hearing no comments or changes, the agenda is accepted. Then we'll move on to staff comments with Manager Tallarico. And the comments are covered in a memo in the agenda packet.
Sure, happy to expand on any of those items. I will elaborate on two of them. So one is I just wanted to let folks know that we are in the process of selecting a contractor to do the work at the airport demonstration garden. I spoke to them briefly today, and I'm going to have a follow-up conversation with them about scheduling and timing and plants. I emphasize the importance of getting plants in the ground as early in the season as possible, so hopefully in the January timeframe, and also express the importance of finding the plants that we had identified in our plant list. So both of those things seemed doable, and so I, again, will have a further conversation with them tomorrow, and we look forward to getting started with that project, hopefully as soon as we can. So I'll be updating you again on that next month and let you know where we're at. The other thing I wanted to mention was we did have the agenda item for council last week was the rate increase, which was passed, and we did get the public hearing notice out to the printer, and so that's in the process of being printed and distributed to 34,000 plus people in the city. So anyway, so that's moving forward, and I think that's all the updates I have.
I have a question, Patrick.
Yes, Chair Clark.
In the agenda for in the consent calendar for the October 14th council meeting, there was an item related to the consultant for the food ordinance, and that was pulled. I think you make reference to it in this waste reduction report, but I just wanted to ask, is that going to be up at the October 28th meeting, and what was the issue there?
So I have prepared a revised staff report, and it is going forward, I believe, on October 28th. So there was an error in the calculations for the awardees. So we had to go back to two of them who were basically in a tie. And so we are going to be doing for that a multiple award. And so we will have two contractors that will be helping us out with that work. And it actually does provide us with the benefit of not only being able to reach out to more businesses in a faster time frame, but also brings kind of a wider array of talent to the mix in terms of supporting that work and supporting some of our outreach related to SB 1383. So that revised staff report will be going forward again, hopefully on October 28th, barring any additional changes.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Patrick? If not, then we'll move on to public comments. Rather than give the standard statement, I'll ask, is there anyone present as a visitor who would like to make a public comment? And then if so, I will read the.
Yes, I would like to give a public comment.
Okay. This time is for members of the public to address the Sustainability Commission on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. The commission values your comments, but pursuant to the Brown Act, cannot take action on items not listed on the posted agenda. 3 minutes are assigned for each speaker. Kim, please go ahead. Please state your name and your city of residence or business affiliation.
My name is Kim Floyd. I live in Palm Desert. I'm speaking for the Sierra Club locally. First, I want to thank you for getting me away from the Dodger game. And secondly, my throat is a little scratchy, so I apologize. I am commenting for the Sierra Club members that live here in the Coachella Valley. Palm Springs is a clear leader in efforts to address climate disruption by taking local action. At the recent Palm Springs City Council meeting, the mayor made a comment and offered to Patrick and to the Sustainability Commission, as I understood what she said, was to consider seeking more funding for the efforts of the Sustainability Commission and the Office of Sustainability. We are strong supporters, the Sierra Club, of any enhanced efforts that this commission and the office, Patrick's office, can take. And I hope you'll work to take the city council, at least the mayor, up on the offer for additional funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Are there any other public comments? I was watching the Dodger game before the meeting, and I'm glad to be here. Any other public?
Chair Clark, just to note, Jake Torrance has also joined us.
Thank you. Welcome, Jake.
Okay. Yep, sorry to be late.
That's fine. So moving on, no presentations. So the next agenda item is the approval of the meeting minutes. The minutes from the September 21st regular meeting. They were emailed and posted on Thursday, October 15th. Are there any comments or corrections on the minutes? Hearing no comments or objections, the minutes are approved. And then we move on to old business, the first item being the climate action roadmap update.
So let me just share that document for folks. So this topic is going to go forward to City Council on October 28th. We shared with the commission, sent around to the commission, I believe it was yesterday, the updated climate action roadmap, and I posted that on the website just prior to the meeting. We have been working on this for a while. You'll notice a few changes to this current version of the document. I put a few more references in here to some other information from other sources like the United Nations about the current climate situation. We also edited and updated the document to try to identify as best we could at this point in time some of the potential impacts of the actions that we have identified in the report. So we talk a little bit about the greenhouse gas inventories that were completed and the results of those. And then as we talk about the roadmap for future actions, we get into some of the specific things that we have on our radar currently. And again, this is a work in progress. As we noted during our strategic planning meeting, certainly one of our primary focuses in the coming months would be to update this and to refine it with more data as we get that data, as that data is made available, working with our consultant to do that. But again, the key thing that I tried to add for most of the items that we have in here are potential impact information. So to the extent that we could quantify some reductions that we would anticipate from some of these efforts, we tried to note that in the report. So that's really the primary thing that you may see that would be in addition to the content that you saw before. We also took some feedback and added a few actions in here. So, so there are a few more refinements to the actions list or list of actions. And so this document will be included in the packet that goes to City Council along with a staff report for their discussions on October 28th. And so as an example of something that we wanted to highlight for the council and get their feedback on were a couple of things that the commission has been working on, especially the subcommittee on solar and green building. And for example, the building electrification is a topic that we've talked about a bit and is kind of gaining steam in some other cities. And so we wanted to bring that to council's attention and get their specific feedback on what they thought about that and whether or not to start to pursue and look into opportunities to expand building electrification. And then we also talked about the couple of ordinances or proposed ordinances that we have been discussing among the commission, which one is the requiring large commercial buildings like grow facilities to acquire carbon-free energy, and then the ordinance for home renovations that will require them to do energy efficiency upgrades. So anyway, so those are the kinds of things that we wanted to highlight for council and bring to their attention and get further direction from them in terms of what they're thinking that they would like to see on our agenda for the future. So again, it's a work in progress and we're trying to update it as we get more information. And then there's quite a bit of overlap, or should be a lot of overlap in some of the things that we were talking about on our priorities discussion a couple of weeks ago. So again, this is the current document. It is posted on the website along with our agenda and was distributed to everybody. And again, will go out to council as part of the October 28th meeting packet. So happy to take some questions on that document if anybody has them. All right. Thanks.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was just looking to the unmute after the screen share. Would it be helpful if either Chair Clark or I made a public comment on behalf of the commission? We've got 2 minutes and I'm happy to do that. I think I had already done a dry run for when this was supposed to go to council last year. So I can recirculate that and send it to you and Chair Clark. And I think it'd be good this would be on behalf of the commission, if that's okay for everybody. I think it's important to say that this is something that both staff and the commission are working hard on to help the city achieve its GHG and other sustainability goals. In 2 minutes, that's about all we can say, and ask for feedback.
Right. And I would also note, based on one of the comments we received this evening, that there is a comment or a note in that staff report that indicates that we are working with the Human Resources Department to define a new position in the office. So,
okay. That could be, that can be included in the rattle the tin cup, saying, we're doing great work, but we need more resources. Mm-hmm. So Patrick, I'll do that either Thursday evening or more likely Monday morning and send it to you and Chair Clark. And as I said, they'll be shortened for 2 minutes.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you.
And Don has his hand up.
Yeah, and I'm unmuted, my gosh. This is probably completely out of sequence, but it's just something that came up as I was going through the whole thing. It seems that since we have sections specific to, for example, transportation for the people who use the resort industry, it's sort of surprising considering not surprising, that's the wrong word, but considering the dominance of the resort industry in Palm Springs, and that the resort industry seems to be a very high user of energy, that we may not, that we could have, that it would be appropriate to have a section similar to having a section specific to cannabis, to have a section specific to resort industry. Am I making sense? And is this the wrong time?
No, I think that's a good point, and it's certainly something we could also raise with council. So one of the things that we will likely be doing with regard to that ordinance for commercial businesses is talking through in more depth about who that may impact, what size of businesses, et cetera. And so my guess is a lot of those hotels, the larger hotels, may likely fall into the larger commercial category. So
Right.
it may fall into that. And it would be also interesting to know how many of them already are on, for example, Desert Community Energy's carbon-free rate too. So, but there's also, I think even beyond the energy-related issues, I think that the tourism sector should be a big focus for us. It's mentioned a couple of times in that document, but also I think in our waste and outreach and recycling and all that. I think that's also a focus.
That makes sense. What came up to me as I was looking at it was that there's a large period of the week where the resorts sit largely empty. And do they have plans in place for how they utilize their the ventilation systems to have savings and not be air conditioning rooms that aren't in use and things like that?
That's a great point. Yep.
Patrick, I did receive the load analysis. Your sort of hypothesis, I think, is generally pretty accurate. I will be speaking with Katie tomorrow, and I'll report back on the DC section. But I think your hypothesis is generally accurate, that the larger users, many of the larger users, are off of are not on carbon free.
All right. Any other questions I can answer? Okay, great.
Thank you, Patrick. Now we'll move on to the next item under old business, and that's the smoking ordinance. Commissioner Baker.
Hi, everyone. So I met with Patrick this week to discuss the smoking ordinance, and we hashed out a few issues. The Human Rights Commission has agreed to kind of follow our lead on where we're going to go with this. We have a few sort of open-ended questions that we haven't quite nailed down. When we last discussed this, many of our members were against the prohibition of having smoking disallowed in multifamily units, so apartments, condominiums, similar type settings. That seems to be the biggest pushback from our group. And there's someone with a little go-kart going outside, sorry about that. The other issues would have to do with places like the bars on arenas that have outdoor seating areas that allow smoking. That we feel that would be the second most controversial issue on this topic. But those were the two things. We have already spoken with City Council, with both former Mayor Coors and current Mayor Holstedge, and they are in favor of both of those delicate subjects, the non-smoking in multifamily units, as well as the non-smoking in the public areas on places like Arenas Boulevard. So that's where we stand. We're writing up a draft to send to City Council. We're also checking with the cannabis group. Patrick was checking. I don't know if you were able to get any feedback on that, Patrick. You're on mute.
I did not, so I will definitely reach out to them.
So, yeah, so we're gonna check with the cannabis, I don't know what the name of the group is at City Hall, but whatever department that handles cannabis licenses in the city to make sure that we are in conformity with existing regulations for cannabis use in public and in residential areas. So at this point, we are ready to submit this to City Council for their review. Am I leaving anything out, Chair Roy?
No, you've covered it well.
So do we need to take a vote on this tonight so that we have some record of that for the staff report?
We taken a vote already prior. There've been no changes other than small edits from the last time we voted. Yeah, we were anticipating that the Human Rights Commission would come back with major edits and we would revisit, but they had 0 edits. So it stands the same as it was when we last discussed it.
And for reference, the latest version is in the agenda packet, and there were a couple of typos that have been corrected, and an explicit statement about banning smoking in individual residences in multifamily units that was clarified. So hopefully everybody has had a chance to look at it, but that's the latest version that was worked out with the Human Rights Commission and corrected in minor ways. David, you have a question?
Did the private right of action come back in this draft? Because I don't think, I don't recall that it was in the last draft. I thought it had gone out and it's back again.
Oh, is it back? No, it should not be in there. We got rid of private. That's definitely a no-go.
All right, well, you'll need to edit it because I had 2 concerns. One was cannabis.
I remember.
The 2 concerns that I've already had, cannabis, and thank you for taking care of that. And then second is the private right of action.
I hear you loudly and clearly.
Right,
I agree with you completely.
that is in the text, so I think that needs to go out because I think that I think we had said that was not something that we had supported. Beyond that, I do appreciate there's some more edits. Cannabis isn't defined, but when you figure out what you want to do with cannabis, you can tweak that. And I appreciate the clarification on multifamily, which had been missing on the past draft. So those were my 2 comments, and thank you. Both of those comments have now been addressed. Cannabis and private right of action goes out before this goes to council.
Oh yeah, definitely. No. Thank you for pointing that out.
All right, thank you. All right. If there is a vote, then I am prepared to support it with those 2 comments addressed.
Any other comments? Yeah, actually, from the new people who weren't here last year, do you guys have any comments just to get some temperature check in the room?
I'll admit to having not given this as close a look as I could have, so I don't have any particular comment on it.
But the bottom line, again, the touchy points are you're in a unique situation because you guys are regulated by state law. So, I don't know where you fit in, Don.
Actually, there seems to be a common assumption that if Palm Springs adopts these regulations, that they will apply to us, and I'm not quite sure how that.
Yeah, I don't think so, because
where that legal issue falls.
Yeah, but the big issue is the apartments and condominiums not allowing smoking, and of course places like Hunter's, just to pick a name, not picking on Hunter's, but a place like that allows smoking where you're outside drinking and people are walking by. So those are the 2 touchy points. And we did acknowledge that there can be an apparent unfairness because people who live in a single family home, whether they rent it or own it, are allowed to smoke in their backyard. But yet you have an attached wall, you're in this multifamily dwelling, so now all of a sudden you're not allowed. And there's an equity question of which we are aware, but by the same token, the American Lung Association and other like-minded organizations have strongly supported evidence that shows living in these units where people smoke, that secondhand smoke gets in through exhaust systems and windows and doors, and it's dangerous for people who are sitting in an adjacent unit not smoking at all.
Actually, we have fairly common complaints within my park, and I know in at least one other, of people smoking next door to a home, and the homes are close enough together that
Yeah.
that the secondhand effect. I'm not sure about how Palm Springs regulation would affect those. We do seem to be affected by, public health standards of the city of Palm Springs. So,
Oh, for those of you who don't know, Councilman Barnett lives in a mobile home, so it's that
Right.
they're sort of
I
regulated.
live in a manufactured home.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
I'm teasing.
So
I live in a trailer.
they're regulated a little differently than other dwellings.
Yes. Somehow, I guess I need to get a hold of that information myself.
So Jake or Kim, Randy, any comments there?
No, I guess it's been a while since I reviewed it. I appreciate it and would vote in favor at this point. And I believe previously when it came up, I voted in favor. I think the challenge with these types of ordinances is regulation and enforcement.
Well, as we said, though, there's no private right of action. And what that means in non-legal terms is sort of like the Texas abortion issue that's going on right now, that a third party can call and say, hey, I'm reporting this person for violating a law. And it's like, they may not even be the neighbor. So that just creates its own issue in and of itself. So it's regulated just like a nuisance, just like if someone's making too much noise, you would just call the same number you would call for a noise complaint.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, in favor, and thanks for the work and support of it. That would be my only comments.
Chair Clark, how should we proceed?
Well, we discussed two options. One would be to take a vote on the version that we have, because we have several new members who didn't vote the last time, or we could not take a vote and in the staff report point out that there was some objection to that one point about multifamily units. Probably would be a stronger position if we took a vote on it and could say that we were in favor.
I will make a motion to accept the non-smoking with the caveat that we remove the private right of action, and we will confer with the cannabis department to make sure everything is in line with existing cannabis regulations, and if necessary, remove the defined term cannabis if we do not use it inside the text.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion to show my appreciation for Commissioner Baker addressing my concerns.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any more discussion? If not, we should take a vote. It probably would.
Right, I'm sorry, one minor question, Roy. I'm sorry. I was slow in getting to the mute. Is an abstention going to hurt I will probably abstain since I haven't really read it real closely. Is that going to hurt the vote?
We won't know until we take it.
Okay.
You can abstain. No one can tell you how to vote.
Or we could, if there's a general feeling that people would like more time, we could postpone the vote until the next meeting. I don't think that would hurt us schedule wise.
I'll read through it if that's the case.
So shall we go ahead and take a vote?
We have a motion and a second.
So I think it would be clearer if we just did a roll call vote. Tracy, could you do that?
So Chair Clark, just to note, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of members on the line. And so even if one abstains, I believe that's still a quorum.
Yes. And actually we have currently 9 members. So let's go ahead with the vote.
Vice Chair Friedman,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett,
Abstain.
Commissioner Evans,
Yes, in favor.
Commissioner Torrance,
Yes.
Commissioner Garrett,
yes,
and Chair Clark.
Yes. So the motion passes. What was the final number? We have
6601.
601. Thank you. So we'll proceed with our work on moving the ordinance toward the city council. And now we'll move on to the next item in the agenda. There's no new business this evening. So the next item is subcommittee and commissioner reports. And the first is standing subcommittee on solar and green building.
Just briefly, a bit of legislative and regulatory action. So the legislative session ended on September 10th, and Governor Newsom had until October 10th to sign any bills that were passed. And several of the ones that he did sign were energy-related bills. There's a new solar law that I mentioned in the report that would require implementation in the municipal code. So I added a provision in the draft clean energy ordinance that Patrick mentioned a short time ago. And then there is also a new ordinance that will set deadline, new bill, excuse me, that will set deadlines on approving permits to install EV chargers. So that also will require an amendment to the municipal code. The state will release some implementing materials. And once that's done, Patrick, I'll work with you and propose a brief amendment so that those both can get implemented sometime as soon as possible next year, because they go into effect on January 1. The Energy Commission approved the Green Building Standards Code last month, and Tracy sent yesterday some of the materials from the Commission's business meeting, and that code enters into effect on January 1, 2023, along with the 2022 Energy Code that the CEC approved in August, and then both codes will be adopted as part of the General Building Code Adoption Ordinance at the end of next year, once again for effectiveness on January 1, 2023. And there was a very interesting workshop on electric vehicle grid integration last week. State is working to reduce the barriers to integrating EV charging equipment with the grid, and Patrick knows just how complicated that is. And Patrick, there are a lot of people in, who are in the same boat. It is complicated statewide. The utilities simply, it's not their top priority. So they just go on and do something else. So what your experience is a statewide phenomenon, and the Energy Commission will try to work with the IOUs and the CPUC to speed them up in getting those interconnects done. And then further down the road is integrating your electric vehicle to the grid, so you can have your car parked in your garage, your electric vehicle, and that can actually power the grid, and hopefully you get paid for that. So, but that's further along down the road. But EVs are kind of the wave of the future as part of the state's GHG reduction. And Patrick, you've noted that in the climate roadmap and the staff report. Those are the sort of highlights now for the sort of legislative and regulatory. It'll slow down a little bit right now.
Just a quick comment on the EV charging situation. We did get contacted by Southern California Edison just yesterday, who moved forward with their Charge Ready program, which is a program they offer for folks to take advantage of additional power upgrades and support from SCE to install EV chargers. So regardless of who installs the ultimate charger, SCE is really the one that does a lot of the groundwork to make sure that there's sufficient power in the right place, et cetera. And so all of that is free under this program. And so we're excited to report that several of our kind of phase 2 areas that we were looking at for charger expansion are on their list. So we're going to meet with them next week to talk through that process and how we get that moving. So so it would include not only public locations like Demuth Park, Ruth Hardy Park, the church lot behind Just Fabulous. And it would also include the maintenance yard. So it doesn't have to be publicly accessible. So we're excited about that. So more to follow on that, but just wanted to let you know that was a new development.
That's great. Any other questions or comments for solar and green building? So we'll move on to standing subcommittee on waste reduction. Patrick?
So a lot going on, of course, on this front. As I mentioned, the rate adjustments were passed by council. So we are going to go out with a public hearing for those increases, and that public hearing will be December 9th. We will update our website to provide a little more information for people about those rate adjustments and their potential impact, and to make sure that people get their questions answered. So we've got our phone number on there, as well as our website and email address. So if people have questions, they can submit them in a variety of ways. The franchise agreement, we are still working on developing the draft franchise agreement. We've been focused primarily on getting that rate adjustment piece out. And so now we can shift focus back to the franchise discussion. We were planning on putting forward the ordinance for SB 1383 on the 4th, actually. I don't think it's going to be on the 4th. We are going to talk to the council subcommittee, or actually it's not really a council subcommittee, but to council member Coors and Mayor Holstage just about the plan for moving those things forward so that we can engage them early on those topics. And then the other thing that's really about all the updates I have. Again, those are the primary things we're working on.
Any questions for Patrick? Hearing none, we'll move on to World Environment Day. Commissioner Futterman is not present. Commissioner Garrett, do you have any comments? Have there been any meetings to start planning for the next World Environment Day?
Nothing really. Commissioner Futterman has been pretty overwhelmed with her master's program here. We have spoken about it, and we'll try to carry forward what we had prepared for the 2020, which was canceled when the lockdown hit. So we had a lot of preliminary work, but I think we can carry that forward successfully.
Thank you. Any questions? The next is the Ad Hoc Subcommittee on Walkability and Pedestrian Planning. Patrick?
Yeah, I did provide an update in the staff comments, but we did meet with the contractor again early this week and are trying to work with them to finish the draft of their report so that we can have a public meeting in November timeframe and share those results and share that with them.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Next is the Ad Hoc Subcommittee on Night Sky. Commissioner Ocanius is not able to be here tonight because of a work activity that she has to support. As we noted previously, Commissioner Jim has resigned. So now we just have Commissioner Ocanius as part of that committee. We would like to know if there's any other commissioners who would like to work on that committee with her. At the last meeting, we did get a subcommittee report from Commissioner Flanagan and Commissioner Ocanius, and some of the things that they're planning to do in the near term are looking at what other cities like Tucson or Rancho Mirage are doing on their approach to dealing with night sky issues, and also starting to prepare some education and outreach recommendations. Those are the things that they're planning to do, and we would like to know if there's anybody who would be interested in joining that effort. And if you haven't decided, if you don't know right now, please let Patrick or me know as soon as possible. Next is Ad Hoc Subcommittee on Strategic Planning and General Plan Update. Patrick?
Well, we met on October 5th, developed those goals and other items to forward to council. That is being consolidated right now in advance of the council's strategic planning meeting in November. And we also made some notes about the comments that folks had on the draft actions and priority areas that were noted. So we'll be circling back to develop a revised version of that document and try to determine how to move that forward.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? The next is bicycle routes and cycling. And I wanted to note that had been an ad hoc subcommittee with Commissioner Flanagan and Commissioner Torrens. And Patrick and I, after discussion, thought that the way the committee is structured now, there's still members of who had been on the Sustainability Commission in the past who formed the core of the committee along with Commissioner Torrens. And we thought perhaps rather than considering it as a subcommittee in itself, that Commissioner Torrens could report to us as a liaison on what the committee has been discussing. Is that acceptable to you, Jake?
Yeah, that would work.
Great. And do you have anything to report from the last month? Okay.
Do not.
Thank you. The next is water conservation.
Yes, a couple of things from this morning's DWA board meeting. There was discussion of Department of Water Resources 2021 drought update. The slides are in the agenda packet for the TWA board meeting. The water year that ended on September 30th was the driest in a century, driven by extreme temperatures and reservoir storage is at record lows. DWR is working with stakeholders and other agencies to plan for another dry year, although there is a bit of rain in Northern California right now, but we'll see whether that happens or not. DWA is also looking at additional conservation incentives, and you recall October 5th discussion, we did have a lot of water and drought resilience matters and lead by example. So as the water situation gets more and more dire, it would be good, you know, that's also, Patrick, an area that will, as we discussed, require investment by the city in water resilience. So we can keep that front burner because the water is just not coming down the right now. Water use was down 9.7% in September 2021 compared with the same month in the 2013 baseline year, and it's 11% below the 2013 baseline over the last 12 months. Water use was down 2% in September compared with last year. Once again, there aren't any state mandatory restrictions. Some cities in Northern California, San Jose just implemented a water restriction today. For the moment, there's nothing statewide. We'll see where things are. But you know, we all need to keep the message of reducing our water consumption. And that's it.
Thank you. Any questions? The next is wellness, and I think Carl has covered everything under that topic.
Nothing further.
Great. Thank you. And finally, Desert Community Energy.
The DC board met yesterday afternoon and approved a new outreach plan that will focus on the benefits of participation in DC's carbon-free program. There will be a carbon-free customer recognition program, including a mailing to thank DC customers for reducing GHG emissions. The Community Advisory Committee will meet next month to provide input on the outreach plan. So Carl, keep some space available in your calendar for that. The DC board approved a request for offers for additional renewable energy and storage procurement for the 2023 to 2026 period as required by a recent CPUC decision. The RFO will be launched this fall. The evaluation and selection of shortlisted proposals is expected to be identified this coming January, and contract negotiations would begin shortly thereafter. And DC may partner with another community choice aggregator in this process. Electricity wholesale costs for the winter are increasing because of an increased natural gas costs. The DC board will consider the need for further rate increase at next month's meeting, and they'll be taking into account SE's rates for 2022 as well. And finally, DC will partner with Home Connect on its free smart thermostat program, which will encourage smart energy use and provide a way for customers to save on the utility bills. So you may see some social media information on that. You'll be able to get a smart thermostat for your house for free. And that's it for DC.
Are there any questions for David? Thank you. Now we'll move on to the final item on our agenda, which is commissioner comments and upcoming agenda. This is where we go around to each commissioner and ask if you have any thoughts on future agenda items or any other comments on commission items of interest. So we'll start with Vice Chair Friedman.
Nothing further. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Baker.
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Barrett.
Yes, one thing. I would like to try to find for us to find some way to incorporate discussion of plug-in hybrids in the discussion of EVs, since plug-in hybrids are tremendous savings when they're doing local driving. And it's sort of confusing. I drive one, and it's confusing to know where they fit within some of the discussions.
Okay, so really to clarify that as we talk about alternative fuel vehicles.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Evans.
Nothing currently, no. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Garrett.
No, nothing.
Commissioner Torrens.
No, nothing.
Thank you. So that concludes our meeting. It's probably in record time. The next meeting will be on Tuesday, November 16th at 5:30 p.m., most likely via Zoom. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Second, Carl. And so the meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night,
Everybody have a good
everyone.
night.
Good night.